Hi, Nigel here with the Drivewire, and this is the 2022 VW Tiguan. This one is an SEL Premium 4Motion. It's also an R-Line, which means it has every bell and whistle on it. But the good news is, it comes in around $37,000. That's it. Every option has been checked on this particular car. Now, the Tiguan is one of VW's biggest sellers. In fact, actually, it is the biggest seller that they have. I think since they revamped it and made it considerably bigger back in 2018, they've sold about 300,000 units. It competes pretty much head-on with Toyota's RAV4, which obviously sells a lot more, same with the Honda CR-V. But I think it's better than the likes of the Ford Escape and a couple of other of these compact SUVs that are out there. This R trim, you get these really nice looking 20-inch wheels. They come with Pirelli all-season tires. And some minor changes to the exterior for 2022. For example, all models get heated seats from the base all the way up to the top. And the same thing with these LED headlights. And the R trim gets this sort of piano black here, what look like vents but are not. You get the R badges right here. I think it looks pretty good. It looks very similar to the Atlas, its big brother, a bit more aggressive and certainly a little bit more upscale. So looking around, it's got pretty good proportions. It's quite spacious inside. Let's go around here to the rear and take a look at the back. So minor changes here are they've moved the Tiguan badge from the side to the middle. Again, I think it looks a little bit more upscale. Right underneath the VW badge, you've got these sort of fake exhausts here to give it a little bit more of an aggressive look at the back. I think it's a good looking car. In the beginning, when it first came out in 2018, I didn't think it looked that good, but they've made some pretty good improvements. Safe improvements, because VW doesn't want to upset its core base. And these cars are selling more and more every year as Volkswagen makes these improvements. Some models get a 3-row, not on this one, not the high-spec one. I actually took this off the rear parcel shelf. You do actually get a spare wheel, which is nice and quite rare these days. With in this space with the seats up, the second row up, you get around 37 cubic feet of space, as well as these two little cubbies right here. And this little handle right here, you pull out, you drop these seats, they're split, so you can do one side or the other or both. That gives you 72 cubic feet of space inside the vehicle, so it's a pretty good size. In the back, you get quite a lot of room. This one has the cream-colored interior, not something that I would spec. I would have it dirty in a flash with the dogs that I have, but it's nice. It's definitely roomy. This seat is quite a long way back, but I still have a lot of room. I have decent amounts of headroom. The sunroof, being the huge dual pane, does eat into headroom just a little bit, but all in all, it's not too bad. The only gripe I have is VW always puts really hard seats in their cars. I wish they had taken the time to use the seats from the ID4. They're a lot more comfortable. You got a center armrest here with two cup holders, and it's wide enough that you don't have to put your arm on the cup holder. So I like that. Middle seat passengers can be accommodated. You do sit a little bit higher, which is the norm. And then rear seat passengers get AC and some USB-C power, as well as the old-fashioned 12-volt. So not a bad place. I could see myself spending a little bit of time in the back if I really had to. Under the hood, it has VW's very popular turbocharged engine. It's got 184 horsepower, 221 foot-pounds, which is its saving grace. It's driven through an 8-speed conventional automatic transmission, and I'm finding that it could use a bit more power, but all in all, unless you're looking to drag race everybody, it has sufficient for what it needs. And again, that torque saves it from being what I would determine to be sluggish. All right, so not a lot has changed inside, but there's definitely a nice upscale feel to this particular model. It's a top model. It ought to have some luxury to it. Therefore, it has the leather, as I mentioned. These seats are fairly comfortable, if a little hard, decent bolstering in the sides. It does come with memory seats, but for some reason I haven't been able to make them work, so not quite sure what's going on there. The premium online model comes with the Fender 12 speaker system. It's a pretty decent sound system. And most of the materials feel pretty good. plastics are of a better quality than some cars that I've been in. There aren't too many scratchy areas. In fact, they feel sort of rubberized in places where sometimes you'd find some scratchy plastic. VW always does a pretty good job of giving you plenty of squishy plastic in most of these places here, so it does feel good. And then this design along here is pretty nice with the R-Line model as well. Let's start off with the HVAC controls. It's something that I really don't like that much. I do like physical knobs and buttons, etc. And this is pretty good in the fact that it does offer you cooled seats right here, which is something that you don't always get on a VW, which is nice. But these little slidey adjusters for the temperature, they're fine when you're not moving, but they're really annoying when you're on the move. Now you can tap each one on the cold or the hot to make it move, but they're a little fiddly when it comes to driving and trying to adjust the temperature at the same time, so not my favorite. What I do like, however, is the infotainment system. It's really easy to use. I like that when you put your hand towards it, you see these other selections. It also offers hand gestures, so you can sweep your hand across, and it doesn't always work, but I do like the fact that they're trying. So whenever you have the little wavy hand here, you can use the hand gestures on here. And then this one gives you some really cool off-road information from this button right here, where you can see, you know, obviously your elevation, the degrees, and tilt, etc. And then you can choose a selection. You can change your digital cockpit, you can change your odometer, you can reset it, you can look at your driving data, how long you've been driving, what your fuel economy is, vehicle status, etc., etc. You can also go into car, you can change your digital cockpit, you can give it a different view. I've left it in view 1, I'll show you that in a second. So going back to the car menu, if you hit on settings, you can do really cool things like change the ambient lighting. For some reason, I like this, and there's some cars that you can't get this on, but this is a multitude of colors that you can have here. You simply just slide this across, and you can change to whatever color. I had it set on purple just for giggles to see what it looks like, and then you can go in here and you can have it off. You can have it on automatic, or you can have it on manual, which is what I have it on right now. It's really easy to do. This is the top of the range one, so it does come with navigation. I would prefer to use my phone because it comes with CarPlay and also Android Auto. And it's you can do that wirelessly. You don't need to plug your phone in. So this system is not particularly intuitive. So stick with your phone, which is probably what most people do. You also get a bunch of drive modes. So if you click on this middle button, see these various different drive modes that you can toggle through. So you got Eco, you can use the touch screen. You got Normal. I've been in Normal for most of the time. Sport, and then Custom. Custom allows you to adjust. You can change your steering, drivetrain, ACC, climate control, etc. to Sport mode or Normal. This is really not the kind of car that you would need to do that with, so I've just left it as is, and I usually drive it in Normal mode. The suspension is a little bit firm, typically Germanic firm, so Normal for me has been a little bit better than putting it in Sport, where it gets a little bit too firm for my liking. So technically this one has the 4Motion system, so you can switch this to snow, changes it to snow, toggle through to your drive mode selector again, turn right again, you get off-road auto mode, so the system just does what it thinks is necessary to get the maximum grip. And then you've got off-road custom, so you can simply click on there, shows you the hill descent controls on, hill start, park assist. I don't know why that's in the off-road mode. Nobody parks when they're off-road, at least not parallel park. All-wheel drive systems in off-road mode, and you can change your steering to normal or sport. I think you should probably just leave it as is, because who wants sporty steering when you're off-road? And then finally down here in the center console, you get your stop start system button, which I like to turn off because it's annoying, even though when you do turn it off, the digital gauge tells you that you could save more gas by turning it back on. I just ignore it. And there's two park assist features here to be able to parallel park. You get two decent cup holders, a little tray here for stuff, and And then not a huge cubby, but it's definitely got a decent amount of volume to put stuff in there. What you don't get is the VW adjustable armrest, which I kind of like. And then directly ahead of the driver is the very good digital cluster. It's not quite as good as an Audi system, but you can move things around, you can change what goes on the screen. It's my really bad 16.3 miles to the gallon, probably because I've been sitting here for a while with the engine running. This one also comes with a heated steering wheel. You can also change things like you can look at your assist systems, you can look at your navigation on screen ahead of you, what's playing, your phone, vehicle status, and then back to how I like it, which is your miles, revs on the left, and then speed on the right with your range. So it's all very clear, it's all very easy to use. What I'm not so happy with are the sort of slidey sort of touch buttons on the steering wheel. So the problem is that when you have your hand here, because you're not supposed to have them here anymore, you're supposed to have them here because of the airbags, you have a tendency to push the heated steering wheel that goes on. You got to keep turning it off, and these are just they're annoying, these controls. And I know why VW did them, because it's cheaper to put this system in and lots of different individual buttons, etc. Of course, being an R model, it's not fast, I can assure you, but you get the R logo and then you get it slightly chopped off at the bottom. All right, let's see what it's like to drive. So as I said, I've had it in normal mode for most of the time. It's a little bit more comfortable in that mode than sports mode. So to get the best out of this engine, it's really better to sort of do the equivalent of short shifting, which is just use half of the gas and just use the torque, because once it gets to 4,000 RPM, that's pretty much it. There's not much left in this engine. You know, 184 horsepower is not a whole lot. So it's pretty sprightly off the line. It hasn't got a lot of performance, but it's not bad. It really works quite nicely around town. Only when you get to sort of higher freeway speeds and you want to go from 70 to 80, for example, there's not a lot there at that point. So the curb weight is 3,800 pounds. So I can imagine that with 4 people in it and a bunch of luggage, performance is going to be somewhat slower than it is. So bear that in mind. I think the key really is drivability. Now, if you compare this with a standard RAV4, not the hybrid version, but the standard RAV4, which has like 175 horsepower. Not quite sure the torque numbers on that one, but it's not 221, and that's what helps this from being a lot more drivable than, say, a RAV4. And let's be honest, people that are going to buy these kind of cars are typically not going to want to drive them fast. They don't want a lot of performance. They want a lot of practicalities. They want a lot of space, and they want decent fuel economy. Now, this will get decent fuel economy if you don't drive it like I do. I would say that it would probably get around 30 on the highway. I don't have the numbers for this specifically. We don't have the EPA numbers for the 2022 model yet, but I'm making a guess on what that might be. Now, I've messed around with going into sport mode a couple of times. It's definitely, if you suddenly want it to change down a gear, if you leave it in D, it's very reluctant and it becomes a little bit jerky. If you put it in S, which I have it in now, it's a little bit more drivable. So, a little quicker in sport mode, but not a whole lot. Don't expect to light your socks on fire there. And once you get going onto sort of freeway speeds, it's actually pretty good. I like the fact that the suspension is a little harder than some other competitors. It makes you feel pretty planted. The downside to that is you hit any expansion joints or small potholes and you can hear the suspension crash. So you pay that price. But I like the firmness. I mean, clearly the Germans have some of the smoothest, best quality roads in the world, so this car would be just perfect there. But on these American roads, which are full of holes and fallen to bits, it does jiggle around just a little bit. But it's remarkably composed in the turns. Feels very car-like. And I would imagine that most people would be perfectly happy with the way this one drives. Most German cars track pretty well at high speeds, and I headed out at some higher speeds up on the 8 freeway going out east a few days ago, and this thing does really well at high speeds. It feels very stable, it feels very planted, doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. One of these cars you could just cruise all day. I mean, Germans tend to build their cars with the idea that you're going to cruise all day at maximum speed on the Autobahn, and they build them like that. So they definitely feel solid. Stretch of road down here which is dotted, and I'm going to attempt to see if I can actually pass someone with my limited power plant. It's unlikely because I would need a 5-mile run up to get past this huge truck that's in front of me, but that's fine. Okay, so that was a failure. So you might want to get used to sitting behind slower traffic with this car, because there's not a lot of opportunity to pass on a 2-lane highway. So what do we think? Well, if you're looking for an SUV, compact SUV, RAV4 size SUV, this isn't bad. I'd maybe shop around a little bit and test everything out. You know, the Mazda's pretty good. I mean, they're all pretty decent for what they do. But VW's done a pretty good job with this car, and it definitely has a more upscale feel to it. And this one happens to be their most popular model. They sell more Tiguans than anything else. All right, that's the end of the test. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. Let me know if you have a Tiguan what you think. Let me know what you think of this one that we just tested. And we'll be back with another video pretty soon. Out.